let's move on to more upper. I only do that early years stuff with you because you may get a child and they just can't throw and catch. So how are you going to break that skill down? You got the others off and they're playing T-ball. So you might have a big game of T-ball going, which is a great game for years 4, 5 and 6 because everyone's involved. Okay, often I don't say 3 outside away because then everyone gets a bat and we just keep the scores going and it can turn into the world champs, T-ball titles, whatever it might be. But if you've got a kid that's out on a base and they don't know how to catch a ball, they don't know how to throw a ball, well, there's a little bit of the other kids get frustrated and then they hate PE even more, or they hate sport even more. So I can often find those kids, I'll do up a little sheet, I can find mum and dad, I can say, look, if we could work on this. Some classes have newsletters, so it might be 3D's newsletter of the week, and I'll ask if I can put a little blurb in at the bottom that says this is what we're working on in PE. And then if you can, maybe contact the parents and say, look, they're having a little bit of trouble with this, could you, we ask them to do home readers at night, why can't we ask them to throw a ball with them at night? It's great for building relationships too. So if I move on to, I've got some soccer balls set up here. So I talked about closed drills, and obviously very simple closed drill, they're weaving in and out of the markers. But I've got a lot of boys that want to, and girls that'll want to kick the ball with their toe, and you've got to break that skill down for them as well. So in soccer, in dribbling, it's using the inside of your foot, and then if they can, the outside of their foot as well. So that's pretty boring. You've got 8 boys lined up in a row, they're waiting their turn. How are you going to make it fun? So I'll set up 2 of those and they've got to race their partner on the other side. So that makes it a lot more open because they're racing, they lose control, and it's really good for them to have that challenge. So that's one way to set up 2 lots of an activity at a station and get them racing or doing things. The other thing I like to do is within my 4 rotations, one of them is a circuit. So I find that the circuit means, I suppose it's a continuous drill and they just keep going and going. So in my soccer lesson the other day, they did that, and then when they got to the purple they had to do a 360 and then head off down to the green marker doing an open dribble. And that might have been right down where that yellow line is in the middle of the oval, so they really had to run. And once they got to that marker, another 360 and then to another marker doing something else. So it's just a constant for that rotation moving. So they're not standing around and waiting. With the younger kids, little obstacle courses. So they love obstacle courses. So things like, you might be able to, they've got to do a hopscotch. I'll show you crosswalking, which is super important. And this will test straight away. You could do it on the line on the field, but I'll just show you. This is Cyril, my snake. So obviously with the littler kids that I teach, things have to be fun. So we've made this into Cyril, and if you touch Cyril, he's often been known to have a bit of a bite if he's hungry. So that just keeps the kids from thinking that they can not do the right thing. And I will, so put it out, this might be one of the parts of the obstacle course, up the straight, then across and then down. So crosswalking, which I was talking to you about before, which relates a lot to their reading and their writing and crossing the midline, is just simply they cross their feet over the rope. But if I said to you now, if I brought a 7-year-old out here and I said teach them how to crosswalk, think about it yourself, because they're going to start, and this is what a lot of them do. Okay, because you've said cross the rope and don't touch it, but how? How do they do that? How do you break that down? So simple, 2 feet together on one side. I should do it this way so you can see. 2 feet together on one side, and I want you to take your outside and I'll tap their leg for them. Tap that and over to the other side. Arms out because they've got to balance. Tap that leg, and this is the one, bringing it behind and then in front and around. All right, so that one's really tricky. I mean, once they've got it, man, they're fast as. And just watch, that rope on a wooden floor can be really slippery. All right, we've worked out. So again, just things to think about. So that's Cyril, they can do it on a line. I mean, you can have boys while they're waiting their turn, and girls, sorry, I keep saying boys because that's been my life. You can have kids doing this while they're waiting. You can have them with tennis balls, throwing them up and down and trying to catch them while the other kid's doing the rotation and they're waiting their turn. Just keeping them busy. You've got music going. you know, lesson's great, it's fun, and it's, you know, it's really great to see. Once you get through those rotations, and I said to you that my year 3s had been doing a soccer unit recently, I start to use the whole oval. So I might have one rotation up in that corner, one over there, one here, and one here. When the whistle blows and they put all the gear back where they found it and they show me that they're ready, then I go like this and I do a big circle which way, and they run like there's no tomorrow to get to the first to the next one to get it started. So it's that adding also a bit of fitness in, so they're going from this corner of the oval and they're sprinting all the way down to the next corner of the oval to start the rotation. And so all you see is just kids the whole lesson just running, doing activities, throwing balls while they're waiting. It's all on. Always debrief at the end of your lesson. There's no use sending kids to do an activity and they don't even know why they've done it or for what reason. You know, bring them in. I'll often find that kids in upper primary struggle with teams and how to play in a team. And I find that kids these days are more argumentative to umpires and refs and teachers than they ever have been before. And so you've got to nab that really early on, okay? Because they know if you argue against a ref, you know, in professional footy, you know, there's red cards, yellow cards, there's all of those sorts of things, and we talk about that a lot. So we come in often as a team, and if I've seen kids arguing, sometimes I don't deal with it straight away because it's good for them to argue. Arguing's not bad. You know, we've got to be able to have our own opinions, but accepting that people have different opinions. So when they come back in, I'll say, hey guys, you know, when you're out there before, I noticed there was something going on over at this rotation. Do you want to talk to me about it? And they might say, oh, he just kept hogging the ball, or he had 3 goes and I only got 1. And I said, all right, well, how did you solve that problem? You know, what did you say? They should be able to solve these problems. They're very used to someone else solving it for them. I said, did you say, hey, I haven't had a go and you've had 3? Well, no. Well, you know, how's he going to know that you didn't get a go? Well, he just should. Well, did you know that? No, I didn't even know. He was standing right back over there playing with a stick. Well, hey, there we go. So how do you think, hey guys over here, how do you think we could deal with that? What do you think you should have done? So that sort of role modelling, because that's your job as well. Okay, it's PE and it's life skills. So getting involved in that sort of thing. Not making it, come down, go for a run. If you can't do it, oh well, you know, that's life. I had that a bit, you know, when I was at school, and it's not fun, doesn't make PE fun at all. You want your kids, you want the parents coming to you and just saying, oh, he was sick on Wednesday the other day, but I couldn't keep him home because it's PE day. And there was no way he was going to miss that lesson. First of all, I was like, great, I've got a snotty kid in my class, yay. But that's great. That's the best feedback that I can have, is that they love coming to my lessons. Now, I was talking to someone on the way here who, you were saying that you were doing some work in your holidays or outside of work in like an AFL club? Yeah, and then was it vacation care or? That was something different, yeah. Yeah, so if I can give that as advice to you too. So yes, I did, you know, B.Ed secondary phys ed here at QUT, and so it was just almost a given that we would go out and get that sort of experience. But there are lots of holiday vacation care and camps that you can go and get experience at. And before and after school care, I just said to my daughter the other day, that would just like be the best job if I was at uni. I'd do that, and you were doing teaching, I'd do that in a flash, because it's before uni and it's after uni and it doesn't encroach on your day. So those sorts of things are really good too. And the other thing is, I still YouTube a lot. Because lots of people, I don't even know how these teachers do it, but there are some teachers out there that spend their life basically creating resources for everybody else. I don't know, I don't have time to do it, so I'm not sure where they get the time, but some people have the most amazing ideas and resources online, on YouTube, and that you don't have to pay for. You know, there's heaps of sites where you've got to pay money to get resources, but like that bulldozers and builders one, I don't know why I was looking for something and this just came up. I think it was a warm-up game at an international school, because PY, the International Baccalaureate program, is lots of the international schools, and the concept is that kids can leave Australia, go to another country with their parents, and the curriculum is all the same, very inquiry based. And it was just one that I learnt there. There's a guy called PYP with Andy, it's a website. He's phenomenal, the way he teaches and the idea, and he just puts it all online for everyone to have. So, you know, he's great, and I keep sending it, that's great, gee, you're good, thanks so much, that's right. I feel bad that I'm not giving much back, but, you know, when you're a mum and you've got kids and you're working, it's studying, you know, it's hard. How much time have I got? Oh, okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I've talked too much.
I have a question
Yes.
about what a typical lesson might look like.
Yep.
So you talked about, there's a number of different warm-up things that you do.
Yes.
Is it all, what is a typical
Well, it depends where you are in the unit. So at the start, so I'm using the unit I've just taught, my soccer unit in particular. They're only in year 3, probably year 4, that sort of level. So I wasn't sure what sort of skills they had. So I set up 4 rotations each lesson that were just really basic ones at the start. Their warm-up was soccer related, so they were learning what the perimeter meant. So I knew that they were doing that in maths, and so I was trying to link in with that with their maths. And so we talked about the perimeter of the oval. And so they chose a partner and they took a ball and they went running around the perimeter of the oval, passing the ball to each other. So it was soccer related, it was warming them up, but I was doing a bit of what they're doing in their unit of inquiry or their maths lesson at the moment. So we talked about that and kids cutting corners and how that's not the perimeter and it wouldn't work out. And then they do these 4 rotations of skills. And then, as I said, each week I would take 2 out and put 2 new ones in. And then we might have some little mini games. In the first couple of weeks I kept it at the 4 rotations, and one of the rotations became a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-3 rotation. So they were starting to get into the concept of drawing a player to you to defend or attack, because that's where they were. But I always try and end the lesson on something fun, like a game or a modified version of something where it's fun, so that when they leave, we have to walk so far to get back, that's their cool down, so we don't often do that, but we'll debrief and then we'll walk away. I'll often try and go through and preview what I'm going to do in the next lesson, because some of them like to know. Lots of kids like structure and routine, and they just like to know where the lesson's heading. So they'll say, well, when are we playing games, miss? Well, when are we doing full field games? And I don't do full field games in my, and I say we're not going to do them because I need to see these sorts of things. So that's like an on grass lesson, or inside on the court, it would be the same sort of thing. So think about your warm up, think about what you're trying to, that sort of backwards by design approach. By the end of this lesson, I would like them to be doing this. Or you might have noticed last week there were a few kids that weren't passing with the inside of your foot, so I might need to go back and do some rotations this week with those particular kids, focusing on using that inside foot, but then ending with some sort of a game or something that's fun. Yeah. It changes if it's, so that's sort of an invasion game. If you can start to put your sports into the sorts of into a grouping, so things like hoop ball, netball, soccer, waller rugby, they're all invasion games, so they're all about invading space and trying to get space. And so what we're trying to do at our school at the moment is the same concept is linked to all of those games. So we talk about it as an invasion game, soccer, an invasion game, netball, an invasion game. So they already know what an invasion game is, they know what's going to be required of them, but the rules might have changed. But then, so I did another unit. The theme in the IB program was on perspective, and so I had the kids thinking. We did a lesson inside where we looked at what is perspective in sport. So the player's perspective, the umpire's perspective, cultural perspectives, gender perspectives, and then we did some sports from a different perspective. So we did hoop ball, which is a basic netball sort of game, but instead of on a netball court, you catch the ball in the hoop to score in silence. So how do I play this game if I can't communicate to my team through voice? So we're talking about children that might, be deaf, and how do they play. And then the final game that we did was a game called goal ball, which is for blind. So every boy was blindfolded in my class, and it's a chime ball, so it's got bells in it and they can hear it. And the idea is that you roll the ball across the court. It's like a badminton sized court. It's got to go on their side of the court before it can go across, so you don't have balls travelling high. But if it goes across the back line, it's a goal. So it was great because you'd have kids go, no, it didn't even go in their court. And I'm like, well, how did you know? You're blind. How would you know? So it really started to put them out of their comfort zone, and they had to think about it from a different perspective. So in that situation, it wasn't a warm-up, drills. It was more of the focus, what I want them to achieve at the end of this is looking at different perspectives. And as the sport part of it, we were looking at it was almost a game sense approach. Has anyone ever heard of game sense? So you basically start with the game and you work back to, well, hang on, that's not working, so what skill do I need to learn or do to put into it? So we just started with the game, and they ended up working out that if they lay on the ground, hands to feet, hands to feet, hands to feet, they could nearly cover the whole of the court, so the ball would hit them and not go over the line. So then the other team learnt, well, hang on, if I roll it as hard as I can, it'll hit them and bounce over them and go over the line. So it was that real sort of higher order thinking and critical thinking in that scenario. But then on top of that, you've got swimming. That lesson's totally different as well, because that's very skill based in terms of how do you teach kids to swim. But like your English lessons or your numeracy lessons or social studies now, social science, that sort of integrated studies, whatever that may be. I would always try and go with that backwards by design approach. What do I want to achieve by the end of this lesson? So how am I going to do that? And make it as fun and as open to all different styles of learning as you can. So English, when I used to teach English a very long time ago, I don't like sitting for a long time. I'm not good at it, I know that. I'm sure there's others, you've been sitting for a while now and listening. So how do you get your kids moving while they're inside the classroom? What are you going to do to get them moving? You can do rotations in a classroom. You can have them doing one part of an activity over here and then they all get up and they move and they go to this, and it's maths, but they're just doing the same concept, just in different activities, but they're moving to each rotation, so their attention's kept. They're doing something different, but the concept is the same, whether it's division or whether it's, something like that. So I always try and plan my lessons thinking, would I enjoy that lesson or would I not? And there are some things that you've just got to teach them, some real direct instruction that they have to know, and I will always prompt them that I'm going to do that. Guys, today we have to do this. I need you to understand this because then we get to move on and do this after. And so you could start with something like, we've been doing lots of stuff at our school where you use post-it notes a lot. There are pens you can use to write on windows that just wipe off. Get the kids to come in with their wonderings. What have they been wondering about for the night? You left that lesson and we debriefed on this. So what have you been thinking about? And they might go up to the wondering wall and they might write something on it that they've been thinking about. Or they might just write it on a post-it note. At the end of the lesson, they just might anonymous stick it up there, and that's a wondering. And so at the end of the lesson, you as the teacher can go to the wondering wall or whatever it is and say, well, I've got a kid who's saying, well, what do I do if in soccer a boy is holding my shirt and I can't get away? And they don't want to dob, they don't want to tell you, but they write it on this little, that sort of thing. So I've got little kids at the moment because it's that stand, aim, and as they get older, you talk about use your eyes to aim where you want the ball to go and turn your body where you want the ball to go. Step, but kids will throw a ball up. So they'll throw it up and swing through, and by the time they swing through, the ball's still up in the air and they totally miss it. So we talk a lot about, and it's really difficult, dropping. So the ball's out in front and you drop and swing through. So there's heaps in that. There's weight transfer, there's hands, there's feet, there's eyes. And you'll find that's one of the hardest skills for kids to get is kicking a footy. And understanding, because we've taught them in soccer to use the inside of their foot. That's generally where you go first. And then you get to rugby and all of a sudden you're teaching them to point their toes and kick the ball on a different part of your foot. So you've got to, work with that. That one's, practice at home.